Hello there.
The cinema courtroom is now in session.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, welcome to the cinema courtroom. I'm your host and galactic judge, Makram, presiding over another groundbreaking and suspenseful episode. But if you're here for the very first time ever, or maybe you were expecting a movie review today, well, I'm going to remind you again that our podcast will be split. Movie reviews on Tuesday. We've been doing it for the past 4 weeks or so. And then we're going to have industry news on a Friday. So, yeah, we'll just be doing a roundup of topics for the cinema industry. Whether you're listening on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or alternatively, the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel for exclusive video coverage. We thank you very much to all my esteemed listeners for tuning in. And I would ask that you don't forget to like and subscribe on your way out. It can be much appreciated, as every click on the icon counts. So, please, again, just click the like icon and ring the notification bell as well. And share this podcast with your friends, family, cat, dog, pigeon, whomever. I do not care, because we do not discriminate here in the cinema courtroom. So you know what? If you're a alien from Neptune and you're tuning in, welcome. You know what? 10 times welcome to you. If you're a human, well, you're kind of boring anyways. We're all kind of boring as a species. But you know what? What isn't going to be boring is what I'm going to give you before this podcast ends. Now, before I go into the list of topics, I would hope that you guys just rate the Cinema Courtroom Show out of 5 on your favorite platforms as well. Because trust me, it really helps boost the algorithm machine more than you know. Okay, so here are the list of things we're going to talk about. 1. Doctor Strange is going to return to the MCU next year. And Robert Downey Jr. is speculated to come back as Iron Man in Captain America Brave New World. Now that's going to be very interesting to talk about. And also, we're going to be talking about how Superman Legacy will not retell Clark Kent's origin story in the new DCU, directed by James Gunn. Also, we're going to be talking about a very nerve-wracking subject. The strike deadline for SAG is tomorrow. We have till tomorrow to negotiate. Also, there's been a new report that has emerged about Jonathan Majors' abuse allegations continuing. Another thing we're going to be talking about in this podcast is my expectations for Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. And 4 other topics will be included, which consist of the following: movie endings I would never change, and whether or not streaming services are a force to reckon with. And also, we're going to do a little history lesson, revisiting the Toy Story 2 disaster. And finally, to finish it all off, we will be exploring the rise of virtual reality filmmaking. So without further ado, let's get into a topic that I'm sure you all are dying to hear some clarification about. Doctor Strange returning next year, and Robert Downey Jr. back as Iron Man. Okay, so on that note, I want to begin with something very short. 2 things, actually. The first thing, and it's more than plausible, for a matter of fact, that development has been confirmed by Benedict Cumberbatch, who plays Doctor Strange himself. Doctor Strange will be returning in an upcoming Marvel Cinematic Universe installment next year in 2024. As for the second thing, it's not plausible, or at least I would hope it isn't, for obvious reasons, and that's the possibility of Robert Downey Jr. re-emerging again as Iron Man. Okay, so I want to get the Doctor Strange stuff out of the way. Listen to this clip.
That's it. These are all out there. Just crisps and shoes and video games.
I think that's all that's left.
Yeah, that's all that's left. We're consuming consumerism.
Indeed. No, I was going to ask what you're going to do next, film-wise. What are we going to see you in the next?
Well, hopefully, strikes and everything else dependent. I'm playing Pete Seeger in a film about Bob Dylan called The Complete Unknown, directed by James Mangold. And it's the story of Dylan's introduction to the folk scene and taking it to him going electric. And then after that, I think the only thing I know for certain is there are some Marvel capers in the making next year.
So, as you can hear, Doctor Strange, if the SAG union does not go on strike and when the writer's strike subsides, will be making an appearance in the MCU again. After all, the Multiverse of Madness ended on an abrupt cliffhanger, in my opinion. I kind of felt like it should have ended with him putting on his watch and just moving on of his life. But then they just, in the last moment, filmed a very awkward cliffhanger, and it kind of got me out of the movie. And it's ironic because the movie ended at a moment, but I was still like, yeah, that kind of ruined the ending of the third act for me. I digress to say that it would be right to assume that whenever Doctor Strange pops up again with that, what's-her-face, the new character who shows up in a post-credit scene, recruiting him to prevent an incursion, they both could pop up again. And whenever they do, it'd probably be following that post-credit scene up. Or maybe it'll be set before Multiverse of Madness, or, before or after No Way Home. I mean, who knows? How about the chances of Robert Downey Jr. returning as Iron Man? Okay, why is this even a speculation to begin with? Good question, Makram. Thanks for asking. Well, it turns out that a guy who goes by the name Nawar Shora posted the following in his LinkedIn. And I'm going to quote him now. This is not me speaking. Well, I'm reading what he's saying. They are filming Captain America 4 around the White House and near my office. I was on a quick errand walk as I noticed all the lights and equipment and finally asked one of the security folks about it. He was so talkative and nice, and, enclosed in brackets, spoiler, Robert Downey Jr. was there last night and they were driving all sorts of supercars. Honey, where is my supercar? Oh my god, I just had a Incredibles callback for some reason while I was reading this LinkedIn. Anyway, continuing on reading. Sorry, guys. Okay. So continuing on reading. We had a good talk and some laughs. I kept hoping for some producer to walk up to me and demand, You have to play my next superhero. Okay. I don't know why we ended with that, but let's get to the meat of the matter. So, while this person, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Nawar Shora, may genuinely believe they witnessed the filming of Captain America 4 near their office, there are unfortunately several reasons to question the truthfulness of their claims. For one, there is a lack of verifiable evidence because there is no photographic or video evidence to substantiate Nawar Shora's claim. In an age where everyone has a camera readily available on their smartphones, it's very unusual not to capture any visual evidence of what's presumably extraordinary event, right? I mean, for fuck's sake, Robert Downey Jr. is coming back as Iron Man. Like, the first character of the MCU who had a heroic death and is one of the best Marvel characters of all time in live action is making a freaking return. Where's the paparazzi? If this is... I mean, they'd be tailing Robert Downey Jr. left and right. Now, someone can make the argument that they're just going to do a Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul situation when they were returning as Walter White and Jesse Pinkman in Better Call Saul, and just put them in a concealed van, and then we just spend a few nights shooting the scene, and then they're on their way. But there's still, yet again, another reason. If that lack of verifiable evidence reason does not hold true, there's still another reason that question the validity of Nawar Shora's claims. Again, I really hope I pronounced her name correctly. Chances are I haven't, but anyway, the next reason is a reflection of the human condition. And it's basic psychology, right? I mean, we all do it. Perhaps this person, and this is gonna, and I know this is, I don't want to make any assumptions about that person's character, but you know, I wouldn't blame them if they did, fabricated their whole encounter with Robert Downey Jr. in order to garner fame. Now, the reason why I think that is because he's not just meeting Robert Downey Jr. in a mall or restaurant or on the street or, you know, I don't know, a bookshop. He's meeting him on a set that's only meant to be reserved for cast and crew. And let's face it, like, let's say that you saw Robert Downey Jr. on a movie set, a Marvel production, no less. It's going to attract 1 million eyeballs on your LinkedIn post. And, you know, maybe the eyes of your employer, who's going to give you $1 billion. Now, I'm just kidding, you know, but whatever. That still doesn't make it true. Because you know what's going to happen after Captain America 4 if Tony Stark does not pull up in a supercar near a White House? This person is going to get a lot of backlash for making it up. Because now people are going to be expecting a No Way Home situation, which, by the way, is not applicable to bringing back Iron Man because neither of the 3 Spider-Man were dead. So it made sense to bring them back for the multiverse. Well, technically, it would make sense to bring back Tony Stark for the multiverse, but it wouldn't make sense screenplay-wise. So, anyway, they're expecting Iron Man to show up. And then he doesn't show up. Well, we're going to have to take into account the potential backlash. It is way more plausible that Robert Downey Jr. pulled up on set, not to play Iron Man again, but rather to catch up with his former colleagues. Maybe Chris Evans, if he's going to be reprising his role as Captain America Sr., which would make the Captain America, which is now becoming a franchise, more consistent because every single Captain America movie had Chris Evans, whether as a protagonist or just, you know, a few scenes. Who am I kidding? Chris Evans was a protagonist in all of those movies. Yeah, but in the 4th one, he's likely not to be the protagonist, but it would still be consistent to add him on anyway. So, yeah, maybe Robert Downey Jr. was just visiting his pal Chris Evans, who also hasn't showed up on a movie set for Marvel in quite a long time. Whatever the case, ladies and gentlemen, Robert Downey Jr. will not be playing a character who died in Avengers Endgame. Iron Man is dead. Bury him accordingly. End of story. He's dead. He's gone. He happened. Now he doesn't exist. Okay? Enough. Let's stop this bullshit speculation. Anyway, if you have any insights about the notion of Doctor Strange, maybe something I don't know, and Iron Man returning, maybe and maybe not, I would give that idea a hard no, by the way. Let me know in the comments section below, or our Twitter inbox at Cinema Courtroom. According to the vast majority of Superman fans, myself included, of course, Clark Kent's origin story as Superman holds immense significance on numerous counts, as it explores the timeless theme of an individual's, a superpowered one no less, journey of self-discovery and acceptance. By portraying Clark Kent's humble beginnings in the humble town of Smallville and his humble adoption by the Kent family in their humble farm, his origin story exhibits the power of, well, many things people find universal: nurturing and instilling values of compassion, even morality and justice. Clark's struggle to comprehend and regulate his significant abilities resonates with the vast majority of audiences, symbolizing the challenges that many individuals face in embracing their own unique qualities and finding their mark in this world. Also, the origin story serves as a powerful metaphor for the immigrant experience, as Clark, an alien from Krypton, learns to navigate the complexities of Earth and use his powers to protect and evoke inspiration in humanity and make a very positive impact on the world around us. Saving cats from trees, or, killing Zod. So, to have James Gunn flat out say that Superman Legacy will not retell Clark Kent's origin story would be perceived as, alien. No pun intended. Maybe it's a good thing that Clark Kent's origin story isn't being rehashed, because, after all, who wants to have Uncle Ben get killed like 8 times in the Spider-Man movies, right? And that's something that Tom Holland's trilogy, Spider-Man Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home, rectified. Other than that one mention of Uncle Ben, which was actually mentioned by a Spider-Man who had to watch Uncle Ben die. In Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's iteration of Spider-Man, just like we're seeing with most of the Superman's iterations, Uncle Ben died so many times. And then we have Krypton getting destroyed in the older Superman movies and Man of Steel. The facts are this: Clark Kent's origin story has been told and retold numerous times in various media formats, such as, older movies, TV shows, and comic books. Constantly revisiting his origin story can lead to a sense of repetition and diminish the element of surprise for audiences. So, bearing in mind those facts, who would want to have Superman's origin story portrayed again? I certainly don't. Now, I get the other side of the argument that, every filmmaker, now whoever's directing Superman, isn't just any filmmaker, especially James Gunn, but typically a filmmaker has to assume that everyone does not know the first thing about the character. And as such, an origin story is essential to rehash what the audience doesn't know. So it can, captivate their minds into the idea of there being a Superman, because they learn who he comes from, and maybe they'll like the character because of that origin story, or maybe they won't. So it's very essential in a way to have Superman's origin story get retold. But on the other hand, go watch Christopher Reeve's Superman or Man of Steel if you get a kick out of Krypton being destroyed. Because with the new DCU slate and a new Superman movie, that comes fresh wineskins, focusing on other aspects of Clark Kent's life and journey as Superman can provide opportunities for enhanced character exploration instead of repeatedly revisiting his origin in the screenplay. The storytelling should delve into his other relationships, internal struggles, and moral dilemmas that have been explored in the comics, but never done before in live action, offering a more nuanced and multi-dimensional portrayal of the Superman character. And imagine if they replace that Krypton origin story with maybe a prologue introducing the villain Brainiac. I just want to keep my next point brief and short, because the next thing that I'm going to talk about between you and I in this full, already extensive podcast is a very anxious topic, and for good reason. So, yeah. Okay, just to get back to this topic about Superman, though, as we finish up. Not portraying Clark Kent's origin story again will also mean that pesky 2-hour time constraints will be eliminated. Clark Kent's origin story is often an extensive narrative. Like in Man of Steel, I believe it was a 10-minute prologue, which requires substantial screen time in order for it to be fully developed. In certain adaptations or limited series formats, the constraints of time may make it challenging to adequately cover Superman's origin without sacrificing other crucial elements of the story or character development. And let's face it, I think we need to spend more time with the Kents, Martha and Jonathan Kent, because they are the figures who Superman spent his whole life with. Superman did not consciously meet his parents. He was just a child. But Martha and Jonathan Kent, well, that relationship could be explored more. And if you want to immerse us into the perspective of Superman's childhood, we wouldn't remember Krypton either if we were a baby. So having Superman and his origin story being separated would be prudent. So, there's that. What are your thoughts on there being no backstory for Clark Kent Superman? I think it's the right move, but perhaps you might have a varying outlook on things. Who knows? Whatever your thoughts are, to those of you tuning into this podcast, thank you, by the way, for that. Share them with me in the comments section below, or reach out to us through our Twitter inbox at Cinema Courtroom. Ladies and gentlemen, the cinema industry is teetering on the edge of uncertainty as the clock ticks down for SAG-AFTRA and AMPTP to finalize their negotiations. The stakes are incredibly high, as failure to reach a deal will result in Hollywood actors joining forces with the Writers' Union in a strike that could send shockwaves throughout the entertainment realm. This looming deadline has cast a shadow of unease over studio executives, as the absence of a SAG agreement by tomorrow would bring the industry to a screeching halt. Major blockbuster productions like Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 2, which I'm planning to see after tomorrow. Part 1 I'm planning to see after tomorrow. Part 2, well, that's going to be abruptly halted, leaving fans eagerly awaiting the next installment. The impact of the SAG union not reaching a deal would also ripple further through the Marvel Cinematic Universe, with numerous films like Blade and TV shows currently in production being compelled to postpone their schedules. Streaming networks, faced with a dearth of new content, would scramble to acquire independent films and seek out international markets in a quest to maybe find the next phenomenon like Squid Game, in hopes of generating billions in viewership, despite the fact that the SAG union could potentially go on strike. And you know what? I think it's gonna happen. Like legit. It's the only way studio executives are gonna, and unions are gonna reach a deal faster. Because if the industry is on halt, then it's doomed. Production ceases, and the tension in the air will be palpable as industry insiders miss out on content. So now they're going to have to hold their breath, acutely aware that the outcome of these negotiations will shape the immediate future of the cinema landscape. This impending strike threat underscores the immense power and influence wielded by these unions as we anxiously await the resolution. The fate of blockbuster franchises, the livelihood of actors, and the streaming landscape itself hang in the balance. To put it shortly, tomorrow is a very critical day. Depending on when you're listening to this podcast, a deal could be made today before the deadline. Speaking of deadline, I want to just quickly summarize an article by a news outlet called Deadline. Okay, I swear, guys, I never intended this to be a pun. I already made a Superman one, so I didn't want to make it. Okay, I'm sorry, okay? I just like to cite our friends over at Deadline as a source, because they're like official. So anyway, I am not going to read the whole article. I am just going to paraphrase it. But it's an anxious read nonetheless. In an ongoing development, the Actors Union has decided to extend the contract negotiations, signaling the gravity of the situation, as a potential strike looms on the horizon tomorrow. The decision to prolong the discussions reflects the high stakes involved and the parties' commitment to reaching a favorable agreement. By granting more time, and by the way, there was actually a extension to the deadline, and now that ends tomorrow. That's why this is a big deal. I'm not just recording this with, the strikes being delayed. Now it's gonna happen. It might happen tomorrow. It could. So, by granting more time, both the union and the other party involved aim to explore all possible avenues for resolving their disputes and averting a potentially disruptive strike. The extension underscores the significance of these negotiations in shaping the future working conditions and terms for the actors involved. With each passing day, the tension builds as the outcome of the talks holds the key to determining whether a strike will be averted or become an imminent reality. Alright, so this is just me paraphrasing Deadline's coverage. I am now going to be sharing my thoughts and insights. And as if you can't tell already, I am pretty anxious. Like, I'm going to be real with you guys. I am not very thrilled with all this happening. That being said, like, I shouldn't even have to say it. I am hoping for a positive outcome that enables the cinema industry to thrive. It is a time of uncertainty, but this deal that is going to be finalized tomorrow is also serving as a reminder of the immense power of collective bargaining and the impact like this strike can have on an entire industry. Guys, we are talking the Hollywood industry, which makes up more than half of the mainstream content. My thoughts are consumed by the livelihoods of countless individuals and the intricate web of production that sustains the entertainment ecosystem. Without actors, the production ceases to continue. Period. And as a film production gets terminated, so do the livelihoods of other set workers. From cinematographers to production designers, makeup artists to set builders, their jobs and creative endeavors would face an abrupt standstill. And as a result, those people will lose their mortgages and have to either break their union contract, losing their umbrella of exclusive legal protection, or make ends meet clearing tables until the strike is over. Furthermore, the outcome of these negotiations possess the power to determine people's future, as well as the vibrancy and vitality of the entire production ecosystem. It's scary and apocalyptic, and shameful to some extent as well. Anyway, what are your thoughts on this very intense deadline for the SAG union to finalize a deal tomorrow? If you're listening to this later on, well, we know the outcome. But right now, at the time of this recording, I am sitting on this chair, just contemplating whether or not they're going to reach a deal tomorrow. But, the outcome of that deal, well, it has already passed if you listen to this later. But if not, well, maybe, you can think with me. Do you think that anyone is going to be affected by tomorrow's outcome? Where do you stand amidst all of this union striking chaos? I mean, let's face it, we had the Writers Guild go on strike. Now we're having the SAG union go on strike. So unions are at a clash with studio executives all around. Anyway, whatever your thoughts are, share them with me in the comment section below, or reach out to us through our Twitter inbox at Cinema Courtroom. The links can be found in the description below. For this next topic, I am going to be conversing about something that has been ongoing for a little while, and that is the abuse allegations against Jonathan Majors, the performer who is playing the next big MCU villain, Kang the Conqueror, as Jonathan Majors already did so far in Loki Season 1 and Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, as well as a guest role in Loki Season 2, presumably. Needless to say that this is a PR nightmare for Marvel Studios and Disney. The allegations against Jonathan Majors, as reported by Rolling Stone magazine, are deeply concerning and paint a disturbing picture of, frankly, his behavior. If, and only if, these accounts are true, it is distressing to hear about instances of physical and emotional abuse inflicted upon his romantic partners. And listen, this is something we shouldn't have to say in today's day and age. Such behavior is completely unacceptable and should be condemned. But there's also the other side that I want to kind of touch on. What if the allegations against Jonathan Majors turn out to be false? Well, frankly, if the allegations against Jonathan Majors turn out to be false, and let's face it, this past year alone, the court's time was wasted dealing with false allegations. Statistically, too. And also, like the one against Johnny Depp. So, if the allegations against Majors is false, it should be a relief for both the actor and his fans, rather than be something that, elite feminists want to push further, or label it as some bias against women, or any victims of abuse. Because false accusations can have severe consequences on an individual's personal and professional life. It is very crucial to remember the principle of innocence until proven guilty and allow the legal process to unfold. And yes, sometimes even the legal process is corrupted. But if I had to choose between a random bozo on Twitter or a judge who has looked into more information that hasn't even come out to the public yet, I take the verdict of a judge any day. And again, sometimes the legal process, actually many times, the legal process is a tool utilized by crooked individuals to mess around and treat like a child's plaything. Yes, which is why when the evidence comes out, I am certain there are analysts out there who will help Mr. Jonathan Majors win the case. Or maybe even lose the court of public opinion. I mean, that could also be a case to win or lose. As for the legal process, well, they decide the cases. If, as stated in a new report, crew members genuinely felt afraid and uncomfortable due to Jonathan Majors' actions, it raises serious questions. But if, as stated in a new report, crew members genuinely felt afraid and uncomfortable due to Jonathan Majors' actions, it raises some alarming questions about Jonathan Majors' professionalism, demeanor, and ability to work collaboratively. Because one production member said the following, and I'm going to quote them: "I've heard of different method actors and how their behavior is, but none of them are violent or rude toward their crew." Enclosed in brackets, Majors was completely disrespectful and kind of violent toward everybody. It put everyone on a stress level because we can't do our job because we were afraid we were going to get hurt. So this is what someone on the production team said. Look, guys, other than maybe being violent towards someone, the word disrespectful is one of the most subjective terms of all kinds. What constitutes disrespectful for me, for you, for that production member, might not constitute the same for everyone else. Maybe Jonathan Majors did a Tom Cruise and yelled at someone for doing something they weren't supposed to. Again, I am not condoning this action if that's what Jonathan Majors really did, nor am I really condemning it, because we do not know the context to endorse or condemn. So, I mean, without having a full comprehension of the background of the incident and what Jonathan Majors actually did or said, it is up to the jury to determine whether Jonathan Majors was actually being abusive. And if Jonathan Majors genuinely was abusive, I will be very disappointed and obviously sympathetic towards the victims. And by the way, if anyone, by any chance, listening to this podcast or anyone I know is a victim of such abuse, the last thing I'm going to do is, not believe you. Because chances are, or there's a high chance that it actually did happen. But when it comes to someone we don't know, and who isn't in our circle, and who's a high-profile celebrity, it is crucial to maintain, objectivity and withhold judgment, because accusations like the one I am currently reading from the Rolling Stone magazine about Jonathan Majors are dangerous, and the same holds true if we discredit potential victims. And by the way, if there are any potential victims that you know or acquainted with, don't discredit them. You're supposed to, stand up for them if you're able to. Unless you're on a wheelchair. Okay, guys, that was a bad joke. Sorry. I'm not sorry. But, if what Jonathan Majors is being accused of is actually true, well, that's also dangerous. Either way, this is a dangerous allegation. And that is why the cinema courtroom is going to remain neutral until new evidence comes out. And I would kindly ask, before you comment your opinions on this matter, do some fact-checking. If you see a flashy headline, just read through it. It only takes a minute, maybe 2, maybe 3, if you're a slow reader and need to have glasses like me. And more importantly, don't be afraid to admit that, hey, I was wrong. If you were wrong before, admit it. So, with that being said, what do you think about the new report detailing Jonathan Majors' abuse allegations? Where do you stand in regards to this issue? And what repercussions do you think this drama is going to have on the MCU side of things? Whatever your insights are, share them with me in the comment section below, or reach out to us through our Twitter inbox at Cinema Courtroom. The links can be found in the description below.
This is a national emergency.
Detonator charged.
We're in a race against the Nazis. And I know what it means if the Nazis have a bomb.
We have a 12-month head start.
18.
How could you possibly know that?
We've got one hope. All America's industrial might and scientific innovation connected here. A secret laboratory. Keep everyone there until it's done.
Let's go recruit some scientists.
Build a town, build it fast. If we don't let scientists bring their families, we'll never get the best.
Why would we go to the middle of nowhere for who knows how long?
Why? Why? How about because this is the most important thing to ever happen in the history of the world?
You're the great improviser, but this you can't do in your head.
Are we saying there's a chance that when we push that button, we destroy the world?
Chances are near zero.
Near zero.
What do you want from theory alone?
0 would be nice.
This is a matter of life and death. but I can perform this miracle.
World War II would be over. Our boys would come home.
That's happening, isn't it?
The world will remember this day. Our work here will ensure a peace mankind has never seen.
Until somebody builds a bigger one.
You are the man who gave them the power to destroy themselves. And the world is not prepared.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Truman needs to know what's next.
2.
What's next?
1.
As an esteemed film pundit, my respect for Christopher Nolan's directing portfolio transcends the realm of mere admiration. See, with each film, Christopher Nolan unlocks the veiled corridors of the audience's consciousness, from the sheer intensity of Inception to the haunting science fiction beauty of Interstellar. Nolan's films have ignited a passion for the art of cinema within viewers. But today, I am not here to talk about all of Christopher Nolan's movies. No. I'm going to be talking about an upcoming biopicture movie that Christopher Nolan also has directed, Oppenheimer, which comes out in only 2 weeks on July 20th and July 21st worldwide. I am going to watch it on the IMAX screen, which should go without saying. So, obviously, I am excited for Oppenheimer. But, as Uncle Ben from another universe has asserted, a universe that I just made up, with great excitement comes great expectations. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today, ladies and gentlemen. My expectations for Oppenheimer are going to be discussed in length in this episode of the Cinema Courtroom. So let's not waste any more time and get right to it, starting with expectation 1. I expect Oppenheimer to have an intricate narrative structure. Christopher Nolan is known for his non-linear storytelling and complex narrative structures. In an Oppenheimer biopic, he would have to employ a similar approach of intricate narrative structures in order to explore different aspects of physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer's life, including his work on the Manhattan Project, his personal relationships, which we see teased in the trailer footage, and the aftermath of the atomic bomb, which includes the "I am become death, the destroyer of worlds" monologue. So, that's my first expectation for Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer coming out in 2 weeks. Now, the second thing to expect from Oppenheimer would be a rich character study about Oppenheimer. Now, Christopher Nolan, throughout movies like Inception, delves into the psychology and motivations of his character. In this biopicture, I expect there to be a detailed exploration of Oppenheimer's inner conflict and struggles, as well as his conflicting emotions and the moral conundrums he faced while contributing to the development of the atomic bomb. I don't want them to focus too much on the political views surrounding the atomic bomb, because I think a biopicture must remain as factual, confirmed by 2 sources and all that shit. But yeah, I don't want politics, but rather Oppenheimer's moral consciousness before and after he made it, which is factual. Now, as for the next and third expectation for Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, intellectual undertones. Here's what I enjoy the most about Christopher Nolan's films, ladies and gentlemen. Christopher Nolan's movies often tackle thought-provoking concepts and explore philosophical themes. In an Oppenheimer biopicture, Christopher Nolan would need to explore the ethical implications of scientific discovery, the essence of power, the consequences of Oppenheimer's actions, and the impact of the atomic bomb on humanity, as has been proven. Okay, now here's the fourth and final obvious expectation that I have for Oppenheimer. Unless you're watching Inglourious Basterds. Attention to historical accuracy. That's my final expectation for Oppenheimer. Because while Nolan also incorporates fictional elements into his narratives, another thing that he does is that he pays attention to the historical precision. In an Oppenheimer biopicture, we should expect concise research and an attempt to faithfully represent the events and personalities involved in the development of the atomic bomb in a way that is not biased, or maybe, not too biased, because if you want to dramatize some elements, which you should as a filmmaker, because you're making a movie that people are going to just consume to get their minds off shit, even though Christopher Nolan, like other filmmakers, have the right to inject their political biases. And I don't believe in censorship, so yeah, they should be allowed to express whatever the hell they want. But then again, the audience also has the right to criticize the filmmakers for doing so. But, Christopher Nolan, he knows better than that, and I trust him. The fact is, Oppenheimer created an atomic bomb, which was utilized for a specific reason. Anything that transcends this fact is our opinions and moral outlook on whether or not it was justified, whose fault it was, Japanese or Americans, etc., etc. So, ladies and gentlemen, here are my 4 expectations for Oppenheimer. 1. I expect there to be an organized narrative structure. 2. Deep character study. 3. Intellectual themes. A common theme for Christopher Nolan indeed. And finally, the obvious one. Historical accuracy. Don't pull a Quentin Tarantino, Nolan, and have, Japan launch an atomic bomb on the United States instead. I mean, that would be very unexpected, but don't do that. Historical accuracy is key. I'm here to watch a real movie about Robert Oppenheimer. So please, historical accuracy. Please, 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 please. Okay. The question I have for the listeners tuning into the show now is, what are your expectations for Oppenheimer? Are they the same as mine? Are there even a few expectations that I missed? Because I have more, but, I want to keep this shortened than the podcast segment I have in my head for Oppenheimer, because I have many expectations that it'll be time-consuming to go through. Are you a fan of Christopher Nolan's directing portfolio? Inception, Interstellar, Tenet, The Dark Knight, Dunkirk, etc., etc. Whatever your valuable insights are, share them with me in the comment section below, or reach out to us through our Twitter inbox at Cinema Courtroom.
Hello there.
Here is a vital component that every film needs. Movie endings. A kind of pasta that very rarely sticks in an industry of slippery, wet walls, the cinema industry. Here's the thing. A good movie ending is crucial because a good movie ending has the power to deeply impact and resonate with, well, you guessed it, human emotions. Humans crave resolution and closure in their stories, and a well-executed ending can provide that emotional catharsis. It can leave us feeling fulfilled, uplifted, or even moved to tears. A strong ending can also stay with us long after we've exited the movie theater, sparking discussions and debates among friends and family, and your cat, dog, pigeons. Moreover, a memorable ending has the potential to become a cultural touchstone, a reference point that binds people together through shared experiences and emotions. Take the final season of Game of Thrones, for instance. Well, many Game of Thrones fans collectively mourn over what the show could have been and what it now is and isn't. Moreover, a good movie taps into our innate need for storytelling and enables us to connect with the characters and their journey on a profoundly human level. Another thing when it comes to movies, there are certain endings that leave an everlasting impact on our hearts, minds, and souls. These endings are so beautifully crafted that they evoke a roller coaster of emotions, leaving us breathless, contemplative, or even perhaps shedding a tear. They possess an intangible quality that resonates with our deepest human experiences and taps into the essence of what it means to be alive. In this exploration of unforgettable movie endings, we will delve into what those movies are, and I'm going to be talking about my personal list of movie endings that I, Makram, would never change for the world. You know, give me $1 billion, and I'm not going to change the ending of any of those movies, because those are the endings that are the most dear to me, and if they're changed, then I would get very, very outraged. First movie ending I would never change, the ending of The Godfather Part 3. Okay, so the thing is, I'm not a big fan of The Godfather Part 3 as a movie, but I did particularly enjoy the Part 3 ending because I think it was consistent in many ways. And the ending of The Godfather Part 3 is a culmination of years of the Michael Corleone's character development, his complex relationships and moral dilemmas. It presents a bittersweet resolution that encapsulates the tragic nature of the Corleone legacy. Michael Corleone, played by Al Pacino, finds himself in the twilight of his life, haunted by the consequences of his choices and consumed by immense guilt. And I think that one reason to preserve this ending is the profound exploration of the price of power and the weight of one's actions. Because throughout the Godfather trilogy, we witness Michael's transformation to a ruthless mob boss. The final moments of the Godfather Part 3 film bring forth a moment of reckoning where Michael faces the consequences of his decisions with the death of his daughter. It serves as a poignant reminder that even in a world driven by power, there are no easy escapes from the choices that we make. So there we have it, ladies and gentlemen, the ending of The Godfather 3. Even though The Godfather 3, it wasn't a good movie on its own, the ending was what kind of made up for a shitty first and second act. Let's move on to the next movie ending, shall we? The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King's entire third act. First and foremost, Unlike The Godfather, the Lord of the Rings trilogy is my favorite set of movies of all time, ever. Its emphasis on the physical and emotional toll of an extensive journey, the most epic battles in all of cinema, the Battle of Helm's Deep, and the Ride of the Rohirrim. So, I mean, of course, I would never change its ending, for it is a testament to the cinematic craftsmanship of director Peter Jackson and his film. Frodo Baggins, Samwise Gamgee, Aragorn, and the rest of the Fellowship undergo long journeys, facing personal trials and tests of character along the way, especially with, the mental toll and the dangers that the ring that Frodo must, hold until he casts us into the fire of Mount Doom are real. And yeah, the ending of The Return of the King, like when we see Sam, Frodo, Pippin, and Merry pull up to the Shire with fancy clothes, allows us to behold the character's growth and transformation. To alter this ending would not only be a big disservice to the incredible set of Lord of the Rings films that, built up to that ending, but it's a huge disservice to J.R. Tolkien, a fine contributor to just literature. He changed how we perceive stories and how, it inspired the cinematic masterpiece manifested in the landscape of Middle-earth. And that's all because of Tolkien's book, obviously, because that's how that's the story that the movie portrayed. Another ending I would never change is the Deathly Hallows ending. Now, it's not as, I'm not that crazy about the Harry Potter ending as I am with Lord of the Rings, but I liked how they resolved the story arc for the Elder Wand. Like, instead of having Harry Potter keep it, he destroys it, and then there's a 19 years time jump where there's nothing but a happy ending. No last minute twist, tragedy, loose plot holes, which I feel like most of those endings want to try their luck. They want to be like, okay, you know what, like Avengers Endgame, okay? They could have just resolved every single plot thread. But then they had Thor join the Guardians, and then, okay, so we know that in Thor's movie, we're going to see the Guardians are setting that up, or making Valkyrie the king of Asgard. Then it's like, okay, well, now we know what that's going to set up. Captain Falcon getting the shield. Yeah, that's going to set up a show. Like, we already know, like, what was being set up, even through the ending. But the Deathly Hallows didn't make me go, what if there was a spin-off sequel for the Elder Wand? Because that's been destroyed. Or, what if there was a spin-off for Draco? Well, he's already been, redeemed. So there's no need to continue Draco's story. Like, there's no need to continue the story. Which is why I'm very disappointed that The Cursed Child is actually a thing. Even though it's not a movie, it's still, somehow canon. Even though it's not, it's just something with J.K. Rowling's name on it. Anyway, what I'm really trying to say, my rambling aside, the Deathly Hallows ending is perfect the way it is. And I like how that it's everyone all grown up. Harry gets married to Ginny. Ron and Hermione get married. Surprise, surprise. They all have kids, including Draco, who's again a reformed character. It's perfect. Perfect to the minute detail. Alright, so that was the Deathly Hallows ending. Next ending, Star Wars The Return of the Jedi. Okay, so where do I even begin with that movie? It has one of the best cinematic endings in filmmaking. Obviously, Lord of the Rings was first place, but it's still like Star Wars Return of the Jedi, top 5 ending for sure. the redemption of one of the most genocidal beings in the galaxy, Darth Vader, and the source for his son Luke's psychological turmoil when he reveals that he is his father in Empire Strikes Back, and the guy who killed Obi-Wan in A New Hope and helped oversee the development of the Death Star that destroyed Leia's home planet, Alderaan, the Emperor's right-hand man, and yet he is redeemed because of the love for his son. And it's wonderful because, as George Lucas would like to say, it's poetry. It rhymes. The audience shifts from how can someone like Darth Vader be Luke's father to Luke is a Jedi like his father before him. And I see many people not pay attention to the Return of the Jedi and misconceive the title as quote unquote Luke just returning in the beginning of the movie, so hey, the Return of the Jedi. But no, the actual meaning of Return of the Jedi is not merely Luke returning or even Luke's story arc as a Jedi being resolved. The actual ending and the meaning of the Return of the Jedi is how Darth Vader fell from grace in the most tragic way and has committed so many, war crimes, acts of terrorism. But then he returned as a Jedi in the end, after he oversaw Palpatine's first death. If you consider the disgusting Star Wars sequels as canon to the lore. I obviously don't, so yeah, that's the one and true ending of Star Wars. So there's that. Unless you bring George Lucas back on board, then maybe he can come up with another ending that's not Disney-fied. Anyway, now I'm going to ask you guys who are listening to this podcast, what movie endings do you think shouldn't be changed? Whatever it is, let me know in the comment section below or our Twitter inbox at Cinema Courtroom. In this segment of the Cinema Courtroom show, I want to delve into the fascinating realm of streaming services and their impact on the cinema industry, and whether or not they are truly a force to be reckoned with. Streaming services have revolutionized the way we consume content here, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, we have access through Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, Disney Plus, HBO. There are many that are not in the top of my head right now, but where you can access a vast library of films and shows available at our fingertips. You need a mobile phone, install Netflix, and you have access to a bookshelves of movies, and new movies, old movies. Actually, usually Netflix releases movies that have played in theaters, and that's not a Netflix original, 6 to 8 months. But still, if people are patient enough, they'll find the movie they've always wanted to see, but they couldn't in the theater, on Netflix. And that's all because of streaming. Because streaming apparently is a substitute to cinema in a way, but not in a significant way. So, as we ask, what does this all mean for cinema? Some would argue that streaming services pose a substantial threat to the traditional cinema experience. After all, the allure of watching movies in the comfort of our own homes can be enticing. However, I'm going to get to later in this segment why cinema ultimately emerges as the winner in this changing landscape, or rather despite this changing landscape, because it always changes, but for some reason the cinema industry is still thriving despite streaming being around. But there's no doubt that streaming can opened doors for independent filmmakers in a way that cinema might not. Like, these platforms have become a haven for diverse voices, sure, and enabling smaller films to reach a global audience. But, the cinema is good for big films, and big films are what is appealing to the mainstream audience. So anyway, but when it comes to streaming, the fact that we have new technology brought to the industry means that unique and innovative stories still have a chance to shine. Stories that may have otherwise struggled to find distribution through traditional channels. Like, if it wasn't for Netflix, then the indie filmmaker who created the show Squid Game, well, people wouldn't have heard of Squid Game. But now it's essentially a pop culture phenomenon. So, yeah, that's not because of the theatrical experience. It's actually because of streaming. And it's very easy when you hear all that to lose your confidence in the cinema industry because of what streaming has been able to do with universes like Marvel or The Mandalorian. Like, can you imagine having a character in a TV show in the same universe being more popular than, let's say Rey in the Star Wars films? Like, can you imagine that? Well, no, but streaming doesn't cease to amaze us when it comes to just creating captivating shows or, straight to streaming movies that sometimes people can see that as a substitute to going to the cinema to watch a movie. Additionally, streaming services have sparked a newfound interest in film history. With their extensive catalogs, viewers now have the opportunity to explore and discover cinematic masterpieces from different eras. This has reignited passion for classic films and enabled younger generations to appreciate the artistry and storytelling techniques that have shaped the medium. And let's face it, people are likely not to watch movies like The Godfather or Goodfellas or even The Lord of the Rings on DVD. Now people are consuming online subscriptions, which, that they only watch The Godfather if it's on Netflix. Streaming services have encouraged creativity and experimentation in filmmaking. With the freedom from traditional studio constraints, filmmakers can take risks and explore unconventional storytelling techniques. And if there's not going to be new ideas, well, people can watch classics on streaming. Again, as I mentioned, with people more inclined to buy DVD copies of movies like The Godfather. However, even though I'm saying all of these pros about streaming, I still think that it is important to acknowledge the value of the cinema experience. The immersive atmosphere, IMAX or 4DX or 3D or 3D IMAX or Max, or there are so many formats that takes up the size of the whole lot. Cinema remains an irreplaceable communal experience that brings people together, offering a unique sense of escapism and emotional connection. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, while streaming services have undoubtedly disrupted the industry, and we went in great depth about that, we firmly believe that cinema ultimately emerges as the winner. These services have provided opportunities for indie filmmakers, rekindled interest in classic cinema, and fueled innovation in storytelling. As we navigate the new era of film consumption, let us embrace the best of both worlds, streaming and cinema, cherishing the magic of the cinema experience while also relishing the convenience and diversity that streaming services bring. So you know what? Perhaps we shouldn't be labeling streaming services as a hostile force against the cinema industry, but rather they can both propel each other to success. What do you think about streaming services? Are they a reckoning force in our industry, or do you think the exact opposite like I do? I mean, it doesn't matter if you do, but whatever your valuable insights are, share them in the comments section below or our Twitter inbox at Cinema Courtroom. So I want to spice things up a bit and talk about something that's very trivial, but it amazes me, even until this very day. Back in the late 1990s, Pixar Animation Studios was hard at work on Toy Story 2, the highly anticipated sequel to the groundbreaking original film. Little did they know, however, they were about to deal with an unexpected catastrophe. It all began when a simple command entered into the film's computer system triggered a massive deletion process. Unbeknownst to the crew, the command had instructed the system to erase almost all of the film's data, including crucial animation files, character models, and textures. Years of hard work were vanishing before the studio executives' very eyes. Panic ensued as the team recognized the magnitude of the situation. It was serious. Months of animation, painstakingly crafted character performances, and countless hours of effort were on the verge of being lost forever. Desperate to salvage the film, the team rallied together and sprung into action. They scoured backup systems, searched through individual workstations, and even contacted employees who have been working remotely. Every effort was made to recover the deleted data of Toy Story 2. Meanwhile, in the Hall of Family. Meanwhile, the director of Toy Story 2, John Lasseter, learned about the catastrophe and immediately intervened. He made an unprecedented decision that would change the course of Toy Story 2's fate. Lasseter authorized a secret copy of the film, which had luckily been kept at home by one of the film's technical directors to work on it during maternity leave. With this quote-unquote secret copy serving as a lifeline, the team began to piece together the film from the remaining fragments. They worked tirelessly, recreating lost animation sequences, rebuilding character models, and reassembling the entire film from scratch. Oh, and, later Pixar would work for a studio called Disney that would reassemble a character called Palpatine in The Rise of Skywalker, and put it under the explanation that he somehow returned. So, Pixar and Disney, a match made in heaven. I'm just kidding. It's a big stretch, but maybe the universe was trying to say something about reassembling and whatnot. So anyway, this disaster actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise. It forced the Toy Story 2 team to reevaluate certain aspects of the story and characters, resulting in a stronger, more cohesive film. And a remarkable display of talent, creativity, and sheer determination, they managed to complete Toy Story 2 again, just in time for its scheduled release docket. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, the Toy Story 2 disaster stands as a testament to the resilience and unwavering dedication of the Pixar team. Man, woman, what happened to them today? I don't know. It's just like they want to focus on ticking diversity boxes rather than, work hard on a movie. Despite the odds stacked against Pixar back then, they were able to transform a catastrophic setback into a triumph. Toy Story 2 went on to become a critical and commercial success, captivating audiences worldwide and solidifying Pixar's reputation as a pioneering force in animation. So, the reason why I'm even revisiting the Toy Story 2 incident is because I want you guys to know that the next time you watch a movie like Toy Story 2, don't forget the incredible journey that went behind the creation. It's a reminder that sometimes, even in the face of tragedy, organic creativity and sheer passion can overcome the most daunting challenges. And I was in the mood to talk about this because, it's a scary thing to happen, but at the same time, it became a uplifting story. So to all you filmmakers tuning in, if you accidentally delete a file or two, just know that you can learn from it. Or maybe just don't be darn stupid and save the damn file. I mean, I could take notes too. So, with all of that ancient history aside, how relieved are you that they managed to save Toy Story 2 from being erased for good? I mean, that all depends on your thoughts about that movie. I mean, did you like Toy Story 2? Have you even watched it, or are you planning to do so at some point? Do you even care? Okay, you don't have to care. It's okay. But honestly, I'd actually recommend Toy Story 1 to 3. I don't think Toy Story 4 should have been a thing. But no, really. I should have actually listed Toy Story 3 in my list of movie endings I would never change in this podcast. But, that just occurred to me now. Because that ending of Toy Story 3, which, by the way, there wouldn't have been a Toy Story 3 and a beautiful ending of such if it wasn't for the success and failure of Toy Story 2. So, anyway, I digress to say that whatever your thoughts are on anything regarding this matter, share them with me in the comments section below, or, alternatively, reach out to us through our Twitter inbox at Cinema Courtroom. If you've been captivated by what you've heard so far, prepare yourself for a treat throughout the remainder of this podcast, because we're not finished, ladies and gentlemen. But before we proceed, let me take a moment to remind you of an exciting opportunity. You can become one of, the first listeners to enjoy new episodes on my audio feed. And hear this? It only requires 2 simple steps. To ensure you never miss a single captivating episode of the Cinema Courtroom Show, simply hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell right now. Or rate this podcast out of 5 on Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or even the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel for exclusive video coverage every week. We've got you covered. Prepare yourself to dive deep in the thrilling realm of movie verdicts and industry affairs with the Cinema Courtroom Show. And here's an exciting bonus for all of our esteemed listeners. By subscribing to the Cinema Courtroom today, I can promise you a front row seat to insightful discussions and thought-provoking debates that will enhance your movie watching experience. Look, this is the perfect podcast for movie connoisseurs like yourself. I am your host, Makram, urging you to subscribe and join our cinema jury, where we determine the verdicts. All you have to do is look up and subscribe to the Cinema Courtroom on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel today. Embrace the power of justice in the Cinemaverse with the Cinema Courtroom. Powered by real passion, fueling film and TV fandom. Okay, so this is one of those topics that you just want to save for a rainy day, but then you realize, you know what? Times like these are a relevant period to bring it up. So we are going to be exploring the rise of VR, virtual reality filmmaking. So today we're diving into the exciting world of virtual reality filmmaking. Virtual reality has revolutionized the way people experience movies, offering an immersive and interactive storytelling medium. With VR tech becoming more accessible, filmmakers now have the opportunity to exceed the boundaries of traditional cinema. So, yeah, join me as we explore the challenges, opportunities, and the transformative impact of virtual reality in the film industry. Let's dive right in. Virtual reality filmmaking has transformed the way we consume movies, enabling viewers to step into the realm of a film and become active participants in the narrative. But it's not just the major studios that would be inclined to embrace this new form of storytelling. Independent filmmakers and creators are also harnessing the power of VR to bring their creative visions to life. And VR equipment in this economy has actually become relatively affordable as opposed to when it was introduced to the market for the first time. So, I mean, filmmakers now have the ability to reach wider audiences and explore innovative storytelling techniques. However, this is where we're going to play devil's advocate. Virtual reality filmmaking presents, just as there are, unique benefits for filmmakers, there are also unique challenges. Because the thing is, directing and editing techniques must still adapt to accommodate the viewer's freedom to look in any direction and interact with the virtual world. And unless you're going to ask a screenwriter to assume where and how the audience is going to look around, and considering this is a 360 environment, you can look up, you can look down, you can look left, you can look right, and the more advanced VR is, the more you can do. So it begs the question, can the writing keep up with the advancements of virtual reality? Because, frankly, this might become a challenge that, might limit storytelling with VR. So, yeah, you have to consider that as well. Also, how does this new VR medium impact the way stories are told? How does it enhance the audience's emotional connection with the narrative? And what possibilities does VR unlock for future filmmakers and storytellers? Anyhow, I would be very interested in reading your thoughts on this subject about, VR and virtual reality filmmaking. What do you think about that? Is it an idea that you object to, not sure about, or do you endorse it all the way? Whatever your valuable insights are, share them with me in the comment section below, because, our comment section is probably going to be the only place where no one's going to accuse you of being a, what do you call it, a film or tech nerd. So, yeah, we're going to let you in with open arms, unless you're, very, very, very nerdy and it's, unbearable nerd stench. Anyway, I'm just kidding. Reach out to us as well through our Twitter inbox at Cinema Courtroom. Thank you for listening. We have now reached the end of what might actually be one of the longest podcast episodes for the Cinema Courtroom that I've ever done. And I mean, hey, I can't help it because the cinema industry is packed with so many news and topics that I I have to talk about. I had a lot of fun doing this podcast, first and foremost. So be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this installment of the Cinema Courtroom Show. I hope to see you guys again in the next installment of the Cinema Courtroom Show, which launches on Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel, where it's going to premiere first. So yeah, thank you once again for listening till the end. I am your Galactic Judge Makram, and I hope you have a spectacular, spectacular day.
Hello there. Court is now dismissed.